Zap, 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 lightning, zap, zap, lightning, lightning.
Hello everybody, it's me, the LEGO Dude, and in today's video I will be talking about every single LEGO Star Wars set which is retiring in 2023. Just to clarify what this means, even if a set retires on December 31st, 2023, it could still be available for weeks afterward, or it might be completely sold out a month beforehand. So if you're going to buy any of these sets, you should buy them by the end of November at the very latest. This list will be split into 3 categories, the first being sets that have had a good lifespan and that I have no problem with being retired, sets that have retired too soon, and sets that were expected to retire but haven't. Starting off with the first category, first up we have the Mandalorian and the Child Brickheads. This set was slated for retirement last year but was taken off the retirement list and given an extended lifespan. So this set being on the retirement list again should be taken with a grain of salt, as it very well could get another year. If it does retire however, then it would have been on shelves for over 3 years, which is a very long time for any set, but for a Brickheads it's especially long. Next up is the 75326 Boba Fett's Throne Room, which at retirement time will have only been on shelves for a year and a half, but considering how it flopped immediately and was received extremely poorly, I don't have any problem with it being retired. Next up is the 4 Plus ATST, which was horrendously overpriced at $35, so I'll be very glad to see it go. And now next after that we have the Dark Trooper helmet, which has had kind of a short lifespan, but I don't like it, so I don't really care that much about its early retirement. Next up on the list after that we have the Playscale Laser Quest, which I think has had a good lifespan, having been released in early 2020, meaning at retirement it will have had a lifespan of 3.5 years, which for a set like this, which is based off a very popular show, should have been expected. After that, the next set up on the list is the UCS Republic Gunship, which I think has overstayed its welcome at this point, so I have no qualms with it being retired at the end of the year. And finally, the last set that we have for this first category is the Death Star Trench Run diorama, which has had a very short lifespan, but considering how many dioramas LEGO are releasing and how bad this particular set was, it has deserved retirement. Now that we finished the first category, we're gonna move on to the sets which I think have retired too soon. First up, we have a trio of Hoth sets with the Hoth Snowtrooper Battle Pack, the Hoth ATST, and the Hoth AT-AT. At the time of retirement, the Snowtrooper Battle Pack and the ATST will have been out for 2 years, while the AT-AT will have been out for 3.5 years. Even though these are normal lifespans for most of these sets, I think that for a group of sets like this, which are all based off an iconic scene from an iconic movie, that they should have given them an extended lifespan of 3 to 4 years. Next up is the Child Buildable Character, which I think should have been given a bit longer on shelves considering how popular the Mandalorian TV show still is, and the fact that it's overall just a very good set. Next after that, we have the UCS Mos Eisley Cantina, which is most definitely one of the greatest UCS sets we've ever had, which I think should have earned it an expanded lifespan until the end of 2024. Compared to all the other UCS sets which have been released over the past few years, the Mos Eisley Cantina is basically at the pinnacle of greatness with how amazing it is. After that on the list, we have 2 sets which just released this January, meaning that they're going to be retiring with incredibly short lifespans of under 12 months, which are the Tusken Raider Brickheads and the Boba Fett Microfighter. I'm not that surprised that they've retired the Boba Fett Microfighter, considering the fact that they retired last year's Razor Crest Microfighter within 12 months as well, and that they also seem to be phasing out Microfighters, but I'm still disappointed that they ended up retiring it so soon. What is surprising though is that they're retiring the Tusken Raider Brickheads after just under a year. I would have expected it to have a lifespan until the end of 2024, but instead it's just going at the end of this year. Next up after that is the Dagobah Training Diorama set, whose retirement is understandable considering the fact that the Death Star Trench Run is also retiring, but the Dagobah Diorama is also much better than that set, so seeing it retire after only 18 months is a lot harder to accept. Add on to that the fact that the Death Star Trash Compactor is surviving another year, it's disappointing that the Dagobah Training Diorama didn't last an extra year as well. Next up on the list is the Dark Trooper Attack, which I think is an amazing set that they really should have given another year. It's based off what's probably the most iconic scene out of The Mandalorian, which people are going to remember for years probably, so having it available for an additional year would have been great. After that on the list, we have the Republic Fighter Tank, which has a mediocre build but an absolutely amazing minifigure selection. There's lots of people who will buy this set just for the minifigures alone. The fact it's only going to get an 18-month lifespan is ridiculous to me, considering if it had another additional year it would still sell great just because of the minifigures. Next up we have the Slave One, which seemed like it would be one of those sets which would be out for a very long time since it's based off an iconic ship from the Star Wars universe, but instead it's going to be retiring at the end of this year with, yes, a long lifespan, but probably not as long as expected or as hoped for. And lastly, we have a duo of sets which were also the type of sets to possibly have lifespans of as long as 5 or 6 years, but instead are retiring now, which are the 2021 X-Wing and 2021 TIE Fighter. Considering the facts that these are both original trilogy sets and how much LEGO love to make sets from the OT, and that these sets are also both affordable and just overall quite good sets, it's shocking to me that they've decided to just cut the cord on these sets in 2023. Back when they released, I was expecting them to last up until 2025 or 2026 because the TIE Fighter and X-Wing are basically the staples of Star Wars, the things everyone thinks about when you say Star Wars, but it seems that they had different plans instead. And now moving on to the final category, we have sets that were expected to retire but didn't. First up is the Justifier, which although it is a good set, was expensive and seemed like it wasn't well liked, has surprisingly not been retired and will be around until at least the end of 2024. Next up is the Obi-Wan Kenobi vs Darth Vader duel set, which surprisingly lives another year even though it was a massive flop, poorly received, and widely made fun of for its design and high price. The UCS Millennium Falcon also still around, with this being its 7th year, which for a LEGO set is basically unheard of. At this point we should just probably expect it to be around forever, since it would be more surprising if it does retire than if it doesn't with how long it's been around. Lastly, we have the 2019 Rise of Skywalker Millennium Falcon, which also just seems to be sticking around at this point. However, the fact that it's still out while the TIE Fighter and X-Wing have been retired is bizarre to me, considering that the excuse that the Millennium Falcon is iconic so they want to have it available at all times is invalid, since the TIE Fighter and X-Wing are arguably just as, if not more, iconic than the Millennium Falcon. Alright everyone, that is everything for today's video. Tell me your thoughts about all of these retiring sets in the comment section down below. Do you think that there's any more sets that LEGO should have retired? Do you think that they're retiring sets too fast? Should the X-Wing and TIE Fighter have not been retired this year? And one last thing before you leave, please remember to hit the subscribe button, ring the notifications bell, and leave a like on the video. Bye!